AFI Fest, the longest-running film festival in Los Angeles, will cap off its 38th edition Sunday evening with the world premiere of Clint Eastwood's Juror No. 2 at the historic TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. Stars Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, and Zoe Deutsch will walk the red carpet, which marks the festival's fourth world premiere of an Eastwood-directed feature. The courtroom drama is the filmmaker's 40th directorial effort, and, given he's 94 years old, it's potentially his final one. 4 days later, Warner Brothers will give Juror No. 2 a somewhat less distinguished treatment. The studio is putting out the feature in a limited release of less than 50 theaters, according to 2 sources with knowledge of the film's distribution, with no current plans to expand to more locations in the following weeks. While exact location counts are still being finalized, as it stands 1 week from opening day, Juror No. 2 is currently listing showtimes at 4 locations around New York City, 5 in the Los Angeles area, and 1 in Chicago. Across the country's 25 most populous cities, the film is listing pre-sales in fewer than 25 locations. The film's official website only promotes showtimes in 18 markets. Cineplex, Canada's leading exhibitor chain, is opening the film in just 1 theater in Toronto across its 160 nationwide venues. While many indies never expand beyond a handful of theaters, it's less common for releases from major Hollywood studios like Warner Brothers. As things currently stand, Juror No. 2 will appear in far fewer auditoriums than other award season releases like On Nora and The Brutalist, which were made on leaner budgets, but will eventually unspool across thousands of screens. Juror No. 2 is releasing in the US, UK, France, Spain, Italy, and Germany with the full support of Warner Brothers, said a spokesperson for the studio. The film will have its worldwide debut at the AFI Film Festival this weekend. Sources tell that Warner Brothers is considering not reporting box office grosses for the film, an atypical practice for a traditional Hollywood studio, though not an unprecedented one. Earlier this year, Disney placed Daisy Ridley's biographical sports drama Young Woman and the Sea in an undisclosed number of theaters and elected against releasing grosses. 2 weeks later, the film debuted on Disney+. The decision seemed bizarre to the few who noticed, a half-measure rollout for a film that was originally commissioned as an exclusive streaming release, but shifted to a theatrical run after testing highly. Some noted that the release meant that Young Woman and the Sea had fulfilled the Academy qualifications to be considered for Oscar nominations, but that seems incidental given the film hasn't received the promotional push required for a serious awards contender. Similarly, Juror No. 2 was originally conceived as a streaming release, as first reported by Puck and confirmed by a source. The studio shifted to theatrical after screening the film, which was produced on a budget in the mid-$30 million range. While next week's limited release will serve as an awards qualifying run, sources tell Variety that the film is not being perceived as a major Oscar player internally at Warner Brothers. Notably, Juror No. 2 isn't featured on the company's FYC 2024 webpage. It's not entirely unexpected, given Eastwood hasn't proven to be an awards player since American Sniper landed 6 Academy Award nominations in 2015. Only 2 nods have followed since. Sound editing for Sully in 2017 and Kathy Bates in supporting actress for Richard Jewell in 2020. Yet the hush-hush rollout for Juror No. 2 remains a peculiar approach for a filmmaker who still has commercial appeal. American Sniper was the highest-grossing domestic release of 2014. 2 of Eastwood's follow-ups, Sully and The Mule, both earned more than $100 million in North America. But in the contemporary theatrical landscape, badly rattled by the COVID pandemic, original adult-skewing dramas are perceived by studios to be much riskier theatrical prospects than they were even 5 years ago. Warner Brothers, the studio that Eastwood has partnered with for more than 50 years, seemed to be re-evaluating its relationship with the filmmaker following the 2021 release of his most recent feature, Cry Macho. That Western drama, which saw a nonagenarian Eastwood directing himself as a former rodeo star finding redemption south of the border, was a box office flop, grossing $16.5 million globally against a production budget of $33 million. The film faced uphill challenges, launching in a theatrical landscape still in its first months of recovery from pandemic lockdowns. It also received a simultaneous streaming debut with a day-and-date launch on Max, then titled HBO Max, as with the rest of Warner Brothers' theatrical slate that year. The underperformance of the tepidly reviewed Cry Macho allegedly emerged as a point of contention at the studio, amid shifting strategy in the wake of Warner Media's merger with Discovery Incorporated. In May 2022, The Wall Street Journal reported that then newly minted CEO David Zaslav questioned why Cry Macho was made after film leadership conceded that they had doubts the movie could turn a profit. "It's not show friends, it's show business," the exec was quoted. Nonetheless, Eastwood was back in Warner Brothers' good graces by April 2023, when the studio greenlit Juror No. 2 under the leadership of Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy, who were tapped to lead the WB film division in the summer prior. But now, the studio seems to have little confidence in the film's commercial prospects. One source close to Warner Brothers says that the decision to put Juror No. 2 in theaters at all represents a gesture of gratitude toward Eastwood, who has earned the company billions in box office grosses, as well as numerous awards for films like Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby. But does a limited rollout in a handful of venues truly qualify as an appropriate distribution plan for an industry icon who has remained loyal to a studio for decades? In the current landscape, that's apparently as good as it gets.